Welcome back. Now, President Bola Tinubu recently granted a presidential pardon to 172 Nigerians, sparking nationwide debate and conversation around it. And so we're going to be looking at presidential pardon, revisiting the cases of those unpardoned with Mr. Chigachi Eke. He's a public affairs analyst joining us via the phone this morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Signature TV.
Now, first of all, I'd like to get your opinion because there are a lot of reactions arising from this presidential pardon. What's your take on the matter and how would you assess the situation?
I have two things to say. Basically, it is in order. The president has got his right of prerogative to even commute the death sentence of those on death row. It is in order. And Nigerians should welcome such development, that they have a president that can understand that really, if somebody really is guilty of anything and found guilty, he could be pardoned. So it's in order. But the second thing I wish to say, which borders over 60 million Nigerians in the Niger Delta, is that the Nigerian government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not saying anything at all on about the innocent man being illegally and corruptly imprisoned in South Africa. I'm talking about no other person than the phenomenology of Mr. Henry Oka. He was framed as a terrorist and illegally imprisoned. But our argument is that he's not a terrorist, he's a prisoner of war, because there was an ongoing struggle, in the armed struggle in the Niger Delta, which he was leading. The amnesty which Yaradua offered him was a fraud amnesty, because Henry Oka accepted that amnesty, but he accepted it on the condition that Yaradua will develop the Niger Delta, and that Yaradua failing to do that, he will go back to armed struggle. Only for Yaradua to call him in private and try to bribe him with offer of oil blocks. That was what the last straw that broke the camel's back. And Yaradua did this in the presence of Mr. Nduka Obeibwena, the owner of Arise TV. We have documents, we have facts. So Henry Oka was involved in legitimate armed struggle to save his people from imminent extinction. I'm an Igbo man. How is Nigeria treating Igbos? We possess one of the biggest gas fields in Africa, the Ohaji Ebema gas. Even as I'm talking to you, they are piping it in order to take this gas all the way to Morocco, where they will not build the LNG. What about our graduates here? So my reaction is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should please send an urgent signal to the government of South Africa to release Henry Oka unconditionally and immediately, because nobody should pardon him for anything. He has not committed any crime. And to tell you that the righteousness of his struggle, amnesty was pronounced in 2009. Why was Ayakromo, a big Ijaw settlement, destroyed by the Nigerian army in December 2010? And why is it that today, in 2025, the federal government and the Nigerian army coerced some Niger Delta ex-militants and called them mercenaries and private military contractors, gave them billions of naira to kill innocent Nigerians? Why is that? If there was peace in the Niger Delta, why was the federal government now employ mercenaries or private military contractors to kill innocent people and to protect the oil pipelines? So, in a nutshell, the Ijaw Nation Forum, which is quite different from the Ijaw National Congress and quite different from Ijaw Youth Council, having realized that Henry Oka was imprisoned by treachery, by bribery, have written 2 petitions. The last one was submitted on the 1st of October this year, just a couple of weeks ago. And one of their representatives, Mr. Kaboy Akamande, had to go all the way to Pretoria and submit that petition that the government of South Africa is making a mistake, thinking that the so-called MTN investment in Nigeria or whatever, we all love South Africans. We love South Africans. We love MTN. But that South African government will be making a mistake, thinking that its investments are safe in the Niger Delta holding Henry Oka. So a petition by the Ijaw Nation Forum was submitted at the Union Building Pretoria on the 1st of October 2025. And the man who bore the burden of the Ijaw Nation, 24 million Ijaws, was no other than an American-based scientist by name Kaboy Akamande. He submitted it to President Ramaphosa, who incidentally was the chairman of MTN when Oka was implicated and unjustly in prison. He was the chairman of MTN. So when we talk about the bribery and the corruption that led to the imprisonment of Henry Oka, you must mention former President Goodluck Jonathan. You must mention the sitting South African president today, Cyril Ramaphosa. You must mention MTN. You must mention some corrupt members of the ANC. And you must mention the international oil companies operating in the Niger Delta. I did my investigation well. I've got court documents from South Africa. Henry Oka is a prisoner of war under international humanitarian law. And let me cite the laws, especially the 3rd Geneva Convention of 1949, Article 4, subsection A, subsection 2, pronounce Henry Oka as a prisoner of war. Again, you must read that section. You read it together with Article 1, subsection 4 of the additional protocol of that same convention. And even the Nigerian government, under the Operational Code of Conduct for Nigeria Army of 1967, paragraph 4, subsection E, clearly captures Henry Oka as a prisoner of war and not a terrorist. If you are looking for terrorists, don't they know where to get them?
All right.
The present Minister of Defense, when he was the governor of Farah, was he not fraternizing with terrorists? Was El Rufai as a governor not paying terrorists not to kill Nigerians?
All right, Mr. Eke.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me, Mr. Eke?
I can hear you.
All right, now we're talking about the presidential clemency and all that. And when you were talking, you spoke about petitions. Now, we want to, divert a little bit to the major topic of, the unpardoned ones. Now, some of these unpardoned inmates and their families, they are alleging and, somewhat writing petitions that the process was selective and, politically influenced. How credible do you think these claims are?
Yes, I tend to agree with that. Somebody like Farouk Lawa, who was convicted not quite long ago, was pardoned. But you have some people who have been in detention. What about Nnamdi Kanu? Why is nobody talking about him? He has not been convicted. Under habeas corpus, why is he being detained year after year? So I tend to agree, but I must also join other Nigerians in thanking President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for releasing some Nigerians. Perhaps by New Year, he may be more magnanimous to release more Nigerians. A man should be given a second chance in life. So the process was very selective, but we still welcome it. Probably the next round of pardon could cover more people, especially ordinary Nigerians who have nobody in their high places.
Right. Now, there is this concern that including serious criminals and offenses, for instance, drug traffickers, murderers, kidnappers, and the likes, there is this concern that it undermines the deterrence and it's sending a wrong signal. So how would you assess the impact of such high-profile pardons depending on the offense, on the crime rate and public trust in law enforcement?
Yes, there are some categories of crimes that should never be pardoned because you are casting aspersion on the families of their victims, and the families under natural justice have every right to go back and take down such a person. Drug barons and drug peddlers should not be pardoned. Kidnappers should not be pardoned. They should not be pardoned because you are casting aspersion. By pardoning them, you are daring the families of their victims to do their worst. And of course, somebody somewhere will also do his worst.
All right.
The politically related this thing, let them go and decongest the prison. And even at that, if a kidnapper after 20-25 years on death row is pardoned, I think something will tell him to mend his ways. Not somebody who was caught kidnapping or selling drugs to underage children and was jailed and then within 2 years you pardon him. You are daring the family of his victims to do their worst, and that's not how to go about with national cohesion. It can only lead to fragmentation.
All right, Mr. Ike, when you were talking, you talked about equality before the law. So what does this particular selection approach say about Nigeria's justice system and our national attitude towards this equality before the law that you said?
It simply means that equality before the law in the body of our laws is just a mirage. There are people out there. They have not even been brought before a court, but they have spent years in detention. Again, I must cite the case of Nnamdi Kanu. You said that this guy is guilty of terrorism and inciting violence. His trial should not be more than 1 month. You sentence him or you release him. But the point we are trying to make is that we are all equal Nigerians. There is no second-class Nigerian. Why then do you pay terrorists in the north and appeal to them? And your governors and your religious leaders are openly seen with terrorists bearing arms. Then you look down southeast and you pick an innocent family man and you have been holding him in incarceration, labeling him a terrorist, labeling him all kinds of things. That is what we are talking about. In that equality before the law, it's a mirage that does not exist under the Nigerian law. And I can readily cite the issue of Henry Oka and Nnamdi Kanu. These are people combined over 80 million people to 100 million people want them released. Release them to their people. Henry Oka should be released to the Ijaw Nation Forum and not the Ijaw National Congress or Ijaw Youth Council. No. Those are compromised bodies. The people fighting for Henry Oka to be released are to be found under the Ijaw Nation Forum. And they are people who love this country, who love the Ijaw Nation, who love their neighbors, and who want to see peace done, both here or elsewhere in Nigeria.
Now, you've mentioned people like Henry Oka and Nnamdi Kanu stating that these people are not guilty of whatever it is they are being charged for. And in line with that, we've also seen that the Ogoni activists as well have rejected the use of pardon for the people that they believe were innocent, arguing that what should be used is exoneration instead, not pardon. So I'd like to get your take on that. What do you think about that idea of exoneration instead of pardon?
Well, I'm very happy that Ogoni people are a great people and they can articulate their own position. They are saying that the Ogoni Nine, we are wrongfully convicted and murdered. So the issue of pardon should not even arise, that they should be exonerated. Just like somebody pronounced the June 12th election that some other person did not win it. Then decades later, it was reversed that this man actually won it. The element of justice is always constant. You cannot concede justice here and condemn it or deny it here. So if Ogoni people are saying that their 4 chiefs murdered and their 9 activists murdered should be exonerated, they were not guilty of any trial because the trial that sentenced them to death was a kangaroo trial. So be it. President Bola Tinubu Ahmed, please listen to Ogoni people. Also listen to the Ijaw Nation Forum. Also listen to Ohaneze Ndigbo. Not quite long ago, our President General, Senator John Azotambata, came out and made a passionate appeal to the federal government that please, holding Nnamdi Kanu is now counterproductive. Let this young man go. By the way, Senator John Mbata is a renowned lawyer, an international lawyer, so he understands what's going on. So we are equally saying so that these gentlemen, if they were Fulanis, they're not Fulani people. I have quite a number of them as my friends. Then let us look at things the way they are. If Nnamdi Kanu was a Fulani man, he wouldn't be sitting in jail. If Henry Oka was a Fulani man, he wouldn't be sitting in jail. And that is part of the inequality in Nigeria you talked about not quite long ago, man.
All right, Mr. Ike, now we cannot talk about the problems without thinking of the solutions to it. So now,
Yes.
how do you think the government, how can the government reform the clemency process to protect, to make it transparent, equitable, and free from political manipulation, and to also include forgotten faces like that of Henry Oka?
Well, what the government can do is that whenever it's going to constitute its panel or committee on prorogation of mercy, should make it public so that different individuals, families, and groups can also use a reputable media output like the Signature TV and say, please, this is the case of our leader, this is the case of our son, consider releasing him. That will be an element of equity, to bring equity into it. But to be very precise on that of Henry Oka, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who as MTN chairman in 2010, 2011 and 2012-13, should as a matter of urgency release Henry Oka without further delay. Release him unconditionally, in safe condition, and immediately. That is the solution, man.
Right. Now, speaking of solutions, earlier on when we talked about the pardon of certain criminal offenses like kidnapping and murder and the likes, you made mention of such pardons as casting aspersions on the families of the victims. Now, what solution, or what do you think is the way these pardons can be done in a way that it will not cast aspersions, like you said, on the victims' families? What should have been done differently as regards to the pardon of certain criminal offenses?
Yes, if a convict, like a kidnapper, should kill an innocent man or somebody's child on account that a ransom was not paid, that criminal should be executed. I'm a big proponent of the death penalty. If I have any reservation, is that justice can be miscarried. So let such a person be commuted to life but not released. Somebody who willfully cooks and sells to a little chap methamphetamine should be executed. Any person cooking and selling methamphetamine, which the street slang is in Urumiri, to somebody's child, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should not pardon such a person. Because if you do, the parents of such a child will come after that beneficiary of pardon and take his own. Because there are certain instances we must agree where preaching, moral persuasion, sermonization does not change criminals. The only thing that will change them is being led to the gallows. That is it. Some people must be executed, and some people, depending on the degree of their distance, they can be pardoned. If I willfully kill any man, I have to face it. And that is where you have to reform the society. We need a lot of reformation.
All right.
Especially under peacetime, not under war condition.
All right. Now, finally, before we go, what do you think is the president's game plan in all of this? Do you see political motivations behind, some of these posthumous pardons?
I wouldn't say yes. By nature, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is tolerant. He has a big heart. I remember when he was the governor of Lagos State, there was even a day every year he would vacate his executive chair and allow a little student to act as the governor of Lagos State for one day. So this is a man known to consider other people. We can take that from him. He may have his fault, but still, that element of humanity is so much abundant in him. How many people did Buhari pardon as the president for 8 years? How many people? But this is the second year. He's pardoning them because he knows that no man is born a criminal. Society made him so. So he is doing the right thing, and we must commend him for that. So many people who are sitting in jail should be released. They should be released. But not a man who willfully takes another man's life, especially premeditated. He planned it, you did nothing absolutely to him. He captures you. Look at, we lost Somto Chukwu Maduagu in Abuja. They chase this young girl to her death. Nobody has any right to come to her doors uninvited. And 14 young men came, frightened her to the point that she had to either throw her out of the three-story building, or she was forced to jump out of it. Nobody should talk of pardon for such persons. They should be executed so that there will be an end. There will be an end. I will tell you one thing as a party shot. I spent a long time in South Africa. South Africa has no death penalty. And Nigerians are behaving anyhow in South Africa. Don't think that when South Africans kill Nigerians, they don't like us. No, they have given us virtually everything. They know and they acknowledge that we helped them during the apartheid struggle. That's why you go to South Africa, they give you their papers, their passport and everything. Now, so many Nigerians abuse this privilege given them, especially Igbo boys and Yoruba boys. They go to Botswana where there is death penalty. Any Nigerian who sees you in Botswana, Gaborone, will tell you, if you talk to me, I'll be the one to call the police. So we have to execute some criminals to bring to a speedy end some problems in Nigeria, like this kidnapping and drug menace. They must be executed.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chigachi AK. Thank you for joining us in the studio this morning.
Thank you, Signature TV. I'm very happy associated with you. Thank you.
All right. Now we have come to the end of that conversation on presidential pardon, revisiting the cases of those unpardoned. Now, thank you very much for joining us on that conversation. We will go on a short break. When we return, Signature Morning continues.